Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, it is Shooter. We're going to go over a couple charts here, and please, at the end of our presentation, do review our disclosures. Let me jump right into this. Now, once in a while, I get on this tangent. I get something in my crow that I can't get rid of, and I keep looking until I figure out something that makes sense. And that's what I'm going to cover today. And basically, my question is, what happens if the Fed does not cut rates? Ironically, I had this prepped before the news broke today. Ironic. So I'm going to start off with TLT here. If we are in this descending wedge, we could go all the way out to September. Most of the time it breaks sooner than that, but we would at least get through summer before we would break out of this wedge. Now, the only time that would change is we'd have to break above that upper band, which right now we'd have to close above 95.14 for it to break that wedge, just using that channel. But let me jump to what I see as my inflation charts. And I just want to go through the theme here, rinse and repeat. This Kinetics Inflation Beat Trust, or ETF, INFL. We're at the breakout line. Right now, I see a target of $38. Is that inflationary or deflationary? I'm going to leave that question there, finish the charts, and then in my review, we're going to go back and answer that question. FCX, we've since broken out. Our next breakout line is where we're actually heading. Breakout line is right overhead at 51.99 with a target of 68. I'm going to ask the same question. Is that inflationary or deflationary? All right. Now, let's jump over to Halliburton. Now, Halliburton, historically in the oil space, has been a good indicator of inflationary costs. So now, again, looking at Halliburton, we're at the breakout line with a target of 60. Is that inflationary or deflationary? All right, let's look at silver. Now, I didn't even draw my breakout line here, but let's just use the upper band of the breakout and say, hey, this is where we break out. Now, looking at silver, breakout lines overhead, targeting 31 on SLV. Again, I'm going to ask that question. Is that inflationary or deflationary? Now I'm going to jump over to Japan. And the reason is Japan, the yen or the US dollar JPY has always been a huge factor in treasuries. So when it sees something, it typically sees something the market doesn't. It usually tends to be leading. So now our breakout line in Japan is overhead with a target of $80. Now, typically Japan has been an inflationary hedge. So I'm going to go back and ask my question again. Is this inflationary or deflationary? Now, we do have a little downtick here to maybe 66.76, but hold that question again. Now, let me look at SCJ, which is Japan's small caps. Now, we got a little ways to get to our breakout line, but it is overhead with a target of 103. So looking at small caps in Japan, is that inflationary or deflationary? So I'm going to come back to FCX. Now, FCX, the whole argument could be is that China's buying, but China is buying, but not to the degree they did in 2020, in 2019, 2018. It's been steady. The buying started in small block. So that could be explained away. Obviously, Halliburton could be where it's at because of the Middle East. Right? Flight to safety could be SLV, right? However, Horizon Kinetics and everything they hold there, I don't really see that as being, I can't explain that away because it's been in a tight band. It put this nice wedge in here. It's broken out of that wedge, heading to the upside. It's starting this kind of a leg here. So I can't explain that away. Japan, I can't explain that away, all right? Small caps in Japan, I can't explain that away. So ultimately, my theme or my answer to is this inflationary or deflationary, this is presenting some inflationary risk in front of us. Not a lot. It's not glaring. It's not slapping me across the face. But clearly looking at these symbols, that's what I see. And that is the best answer to the questions that were arising for me looking at charts over the last 2 weeks. I see something's bothering me. Why is gold so high? And that I'm going to end with bringing up a gold chart or a GLD chart. Reason is it is the most closest track to spot gold, right? That's extremely bullish. Now this, to some degree, it's Middle East. It's the wars that are going on, but we land here. We land on the war. Really haven't accelerated except for the Iran thing. And that's really not an acceleration. We had a ceasefire in Gaza. So again, I'm back to the question, is this inflationary or deflation? And I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, this is coming across, in my mind, right or wrong, I think we have some underlying inflation that has not necessarily reared its head on the globe. Okay, I'm not necessarily saying the United States, but if, historically, Germany and Japan have always had lower inflation, no matter what the cycle is. They've always had the lower side of inflation, mainly because of their monetary policies related to the dollar. So, and in that, I'm going to shift over to the dollar and just take a look at that 1 second. And this upside, it looks to me like we're ready to break out and completely invalidate this downtrend that basically we've been in since September of 22. So this ultimately would be a ledge and it would put us up around 125. What the heck is that going to do to commodities? Well, not commodities, going to do to indices. Well, it's going to take tech and it's going to slaughter it if that happens. We could see 20% downside in tech. So this whole rally that we've had in tech could just be annihilated by this. And it doesn't take a lot of inflation to do this. It's just the perception that the Fed is not going to cut. The economy is fine, which happened to be the news story today. So that's just what's stuck in my crow here. I'm going to be on this a while. You might see a couple videos on it because I'm digging now. I'm trying to get more conviction on that thesis. And ultimately, until I get an answer, I'm the kind of guy that I don't quit. I'm like the Energizer battery. I just keep on ticking. So, well, great trading, folks. Until next time.